George Ensle. If you Google George Ensle, you'll find in Wikipedia that George began his career as a teenager performing in the 1960s in the Houston folk club scene at legendary venues, legendary certainly to us, like Sand Mountain, Anderson Fair, and the Red Brick Floor, and the Old Quarter, where he shared stages and swapped songs with artist friends who would later go on to become iconic on the national and world stage. Names like, and I just want to know, because for Bill, for me, for George, these people are like folk heroes of Texas, but I'm very curious. So if you recognize the name Townes Van Zandt, a few people do. Guy Clark? Oh yeah, okay. Billy Joe Shaver? Jerry Jeff Walker? Okay. Well, these are some of the folks when they were very young and very first starting, and George was as well, that they all hung out together in Houston. And I envy that opportunity in your life. Along the way, he worked with fellow Texas legends like Eric Taylor, Bill Staines, Vince Bell, Don Sanders, Bill Cade, Nancy Griffith, and Richard Dobson. George has been performing and songwriting for over 50 years, and in 2017, he was inducted into the Houston Folk Music Archives at Rice University. He has won numerous awards for songwriting, including the very coveted and prestigious Kerrville New Folk Songwriting Competition in 1977. And just so you know, that competition was established in 1972 by Peter Yarrow of Peter, Paul, and Mary. But more than anything else, George has won respect and admiration of generations of Texas songwriters who have followed in his footsteps. It has been said of George that he is a song painter whose creations blend reverence and compassion with a healthy dose of wit and wisdom. A fellow by the name of Townes Van Zandt, a few of you have heard of him, once said that George Ensle was one of his favorite songwriters. Not bad bona fides, I'd say. So please welcome back to Schreiner University, George Ensle.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, George, would you like to start with the song? Play
Sure.
anything you want. This might be the only time all evening you can play anything you want. Well, maybe not, but go ahead.
Well, let's see. You had mentioned Townes Van Zandt. Townes was one of my mentors, really. Yeah, I wrote this song for Townes. It's called The Troubadour. When his fingers ring the silver string, his spirits sing on golden wing, words to fly you from your world of care, words to tie you to people everywhere. He's a troubadour, he's lost in his song, about that road we're traveling on. May he find love between the lines, high above him, sweet sunshine. He's a city street, he's a country mile, lines cut deep around his smile. He's bars and stars, a boy and a man who goes too far for a one-night stand. But he's a troubadour, lost in his song about that road we're traveling on. May he find love between the lines, and high above him, sweet sunshine. Ragged as the wind, pure as the snow, no place to stay, and everywhere to go. He leaves for no reason, a home behind, and finds a way to make it right. The troubadour, lost in his song, about that road we're traveling on. May he find love between the lines, high above him, sweet sunshine. Thank you. Thank you.
What a great song. What a great, oh, I love that for Townes. Okay, so let's get the vitals out of the way. What's the name on your birth certificate?
Blaze Foley.
Oh, it is not.
It's George William Ensle II.
George William Ensle II. Yeah. And where were you born?
In Houston.
In Houston, okay. Tell us a little bit about your music education. Did you have formal, or how did you learn music?
Well, my father was a professional musician, but it was back in the 30s before I was born, up in Syracuse, New York, and he played what's known as the Borscht Belt, the Jewish Rockies, all the resorts up and down in the Catskill Mountains, and he played a lot of college dance marathons, and he played some speakeasies and whatnot. He played woodwinds, he played clarinets and saxophones and flute. But by the time I was born in Houston. He moved down there with the family, and he had pretty much hung it up, but he had instruments laying around the house that us kids would pick up and play around with. But my first introduction, I picked up the saxophone in junior high in 6th grade, alto sax. And I played in the marching band and in the orchestra, and learned how to read music. And then at 13, I got my first guitar. So at 14, I started taking guitar lessons. And the guy that I took guitar lessons from, Darrell Harris, he was the one that introduced me to the whole folk scene.
Darrell camps with us.
Yeah?
Yeah, Can't Bite Me.
That's right, that's right.
Yep. Darrell's a great,
But he was teaching me classical guitar, and if I did the study and went home and practiced and learned the piece, then the next lesson he'd show me a folk song. So that was the carrot that he dangled me. Taught me how to finger pick.
That's great.
And play folk music, and then I started writing songs when I was probably about 16.
So it sounds like that your father probably did have an artistic or musical influence in your life, but you kind of took it on your own direction.
Yeah, and he played classical music. Back then we had what they call hi-fi, high fidelity, before stereo, and he had a speaker that was about half as big as that curtain there, and he put it on full blast, and so I got introduced to the classics as well.
Yeah. Well, for some of us, our first fans and often our first critics are our parents and our family. So I'm just kind of curious. Did your parents were they pleased?
They're very supportive. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, do they have a favorite George Ensle song?
Oh gosh, I don't know. The one that, that's a good question. They both passed away, but I don't know. That's a good question. They were pretty supportive of everything I did,
Mm-hmm. Did you ever write a song about them?
Yeah, I wrote one for both of them, actually.
Would you mind playing one of those?
No, I don't mind. Let's see. We'll do the one I wrote for my dad. I wrote two for him, actually, but this one. I wrote after he passed away. It took me 5 years to write this song. For those of you who are interested in the creative process, I had the what I call the laundry list. I had all these ideas, that I wanted to touch on, and the way I describe songwriting is it's a lot of times it's like this big hopper where you put all these ideas in, but it needs to be wound up down here through the distilling process and editing process and the creative process. So it took me 5 years before I actually, and I set it aside for a while. I didn't work on it constantly for 5 years. But I actually went to a workshop that Steve Seskin and Alan Shamblin, the only songwriting workshop I ever went to, they were hosting it. And the reason I went to it was because I wanted to meet the men that wrote Don't Laugh at Me. Mm-hmm. And after I went to that workshop, I got some insight and went home and finished the song. Here's me standing up at bat in my first Little League game. Before I lost it when I struck out, dropped my head in shame. But on that long ride home, you said I didn't really lose, because I went down swinging and made no excuse. Here's me standing on your shoulders, working up the nerve to dive off into the deep end. Tears welling up inside, but I made it when you told me those words every child should know. You said I might turn you loose, but I'll never let you go. Saving me, you've been saving me in this album by your bed, filled with pictures of me growing up and the ways that I've been blessed with your little words of wisdom for my little cries for help that saved me from a scary world and saved me from myself. Here's you running along beside me on my first two-wheel bike, trying to steer me straight like you've done all my life. You said it's not about the falling down, it's the climbing back on. It's not how far you've yet to go, it's how far you've already gone. Sometimes we let each other down, but when all was said and done, we stood by one another when they snapped that shutter. Forever, the Father and the Son. Now I know you might not understand all I'm saying in this song, why you're in your second childhood, or why you're in this nursing home. I guess our roles are changing. Now I'm taking care of you, and the pictures in this scrapbook filled with timeless truth, and I'll be saving you in this album by my bed. And I'll hold on so now you can let go. And oh, you've done your best. And I'll pray for words of wisdom for your little cries for help, to save you from a scary world. Save you from yourself.
Man, you got me.
Thank you.
Ooh, that was amazing. Well, George, I know that Dr. Hudson has a film class here tonight, and what a great way to connect storytelling and the ability to paint images across genres. You know, and your songs. One of the things that is very clear is you're an artist who demonstrates that old song axiom, show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. I mean, isn't that a great way to approach songwriting? Mm-hmm. Collecting people and characters and revealing them to us in word pictures that you paint, like you just did. Oh, it's amazing. And you have had the chance to spend a lot of years working around some real characters as well. Just among us close friends here and within this cone of silence, who is or was your favorite character and why?
Favorite character?
Uh-huh.
My favorite character? You mean,
Well, this could be like, I mean, Townes was a character. Or it could be, you know, take it your own way. I'll leave that to your interpretation.
my favorite character? Gosh, I don't know. I hadn't thought about, and there's so many characters. Well, that's a good question. That's a real good question. My wife, how about that?
Is she a character?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah.
One of 6 women in your house, did you say?
Yeah, well, there's 9 altogether.
Oh my.
3
Okay.
daughters and 5 granddaughters and my wife. So.
And what makes her a character?
Well, just tolerating me mostly. For 40 years. It's been over 40 years. 43 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah. So she's my favorite character.
So, have you written a song about her?
Oh, yeah. I've written lots of songs about her.
Okay, so would you mind picking one and
No,
playing
I'll
it
play
for
one.
us?
Sure. We went through when we were living in South Austin on Williamson Creek, there was in 1998, there was excuse me, there was 11 inches or 14 inches of rain dumped in like 5 hours. And so the creek rose up and got into our house. We had 2 feet of water throughout our entire house. And the reason being there were 2 hurricanes that were parked out in the Gulf. And so it was an amazing experience. We had our 3 daughters living with us and our dog. We all made it out safe and everything, but it was kind kind of frightening because it happened at night. It started coming in the house at night. You are the daybreak on, a way to carry on. You're a new chance. You are the morning dew on all that we've been through. You're a slow dance. You're the shadows and the pines where we lose track of time. You're what I miss. A river in the rain, washing away the pain, a soft kiss. You're the eye of the hurricane, and when I'm in your arms, I know I can remain protected from the storm. Should the world outside our door lose its way in the wind and rain, I'll weather out this life with you to lay beside in the eye of the hurricane. You're the moonlight on the snow of love we've yet to know, still falling. You're the wind in a Mustang's mane, running free from living's chains. I hear you calling. You're the sunlight streaming through a rain cloud on blue waters around me. You're the stars out on the road, as clear as words unspoken since you found me. You're the eye of the hurricane, and when I'm in your arms, I know I can remain protected from the storm. Should the world outside our door lose its way in the wind and rain, I'll weather out this life with you to lay beside in the eye of the hurricane.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, we are at a time, I think you've had an opportunity to become just a little acquainted with George, and I hope that maybe he's piqued your curiosity a bit. So if you would like to ask some questions, that's a big part of the reason why we bring him here and present him in person, so that you have the opportunity to have a little one-on-one as well. So what I'd like to ask you to do, because we are videotaping this, is if you have a question, if you'll stand up. We have gentlemen here with microphones, because we'd like to be able to have your question on the video as well. So if you have a question for George, would you please stand up, and they'll come bring you a microphone? Thank you.
My question is, my name's Ryan Hensley too. Hensley. How do you spell your last name?
It's Ensle.
Ensle.
Uh-huh.
Okay, mine's Hensley. Okay.
Okay.
I was just wondering, how long have you done this?
Well, I've been playing ever since I was 14. So over 50 years.
All right. Thank you.
And I've been performing, well, I've been performing since 67, so 52 years I've been performing, but playing guitar since I was 14.
Thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Oh, would you stand up, please?
Hi, my name's Leah McKinnish. I just wanted to ask, do you remember the first song you wrote, and what was it?
Well, that's a good question. First song I wrote was about a rainy day in Houston. I do remember that.
That's an anomaly. Not.
But I don't know if I don't know if I could remember how to play it. I was about 16. Something like rainy Houston morning, staring at the shiny street, painting myself into the corner where the walls of misery meet. I was 16. I don't know. And I was probably in love with some girl, you know. But I don't really remember. As you grow and mature as a writer, then you tend to leave some of your older material behind, thinking that even though some of my material, I still get requests for things I wrote back in the 60s and 70s. I don't really know them all that well. But that's what the song was about. Rainy Houston morning.
Anybody? Oh, we have another question here, right? Yep. Oh, okay.
Hi, my name is Jordan Bevins. I just wanted to ask you, what inspired you to write music for others?
What inspired me to write
Or play music for others?
or play guitar? Well, that's a good question. My brother had a friend. Like I say, I was playing saxophone, and I really loved music. And I mean, playing music, and the more I play it, the more I realize what a healing property music has. As a teenager, going through all the stuff that teenagers go through, and trying to find your identity and whatnot, music really made me feel good, and I was good at it. I was kind of adept at it. I don't know if I had some kind of innate ability or whatever, but it came kind of quickly to me, playing the sax and learning music, and I was always getting demoted down. I'd go up and we'd have tryouts, and I'd make first chair, and then I'd start cutting up and misbehaving and playing stuff like Little Brown Jug, on the sax behind the teacher's back, and then he'd put me down. I'd have to win the chair again, but it came pretty easy for me. But my brother had a friend that would come over, and my brother was 8 years older than me, and his friend, of course, was 8 years older too. 8 years older, yeah. And anyway, he would come, and he'd play folk songs, Kingston Trio songs, and he'd play show tunes like "To Call the Wind Mariah," and he'd come over to the house and be playing those, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to play guitar and sing. So I asked my parents for a guitar, and I got one for Christmas. But he was a big inspiration. And plus I had this record player. Back then we had 45s, and you could stack up like about 15 of them. And they would, after they played, the arm would go over and the next one would drop. And then the arm would play the next one. So you could play like about 10 or 12
I remember this.
45s. And so I listened to the music of the day, of the 60s. And there was a lot of folk music and a lot of, pop music. And I just really, it just really moved me to hear the, Tom Dooley and Kingston Trio. And then, I got into the folk scene and heard the songs Townes was playing and Guy was playing and Don Sanders, and got into the folk scene.
Okay, another question here?
Yeah, my name is Ali Mahoy. I was just wondering, since you were born in Texas and you grew up in Houston, do you think like your environment, just where you came from, had a big impact on the kind of music that you made, and why?
I didn't really understand.
Say that again?
So, growing up in Houston, do you think like the people around you, or just like being in Texas, had a big impact on why you make the kind of music that you make?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And why?
Why? Why did it happen?
Yeah, why do you think that?
Well, I mean, that's what I was exposed to. And so I naturally kind of had a tendency to lean toward the folk idiom, the genre, especially storytelling. But yeah, all the folk music was what was going on in the 60s in Houston. And we had these things called coffee houses back then, where they just served coffee and teas, like the Sand Mountain Coffee House you mentioned. They had little fishnet candles on the tables, and there was no alcohol. And it was all about, and it was acoustic music, so it was acoustic guitars, and it was all about, telling stories, and then it got to be, got to be some political stuff started, coming in the 60s too. I didn't really get into that scene, but I just kind of gravitated toward that, and finger picking was something that really was attractive to me, because especially when you're playing a solo, I mean, you sort of have to, you don't have a bass player or a rhythm player or lead player, so you sort of have to do all three, and when you finger pick, you sort of can, do that. Does that answer your question? Sure.
You had a question, right? Okay.
I have a couple questions for you, if you
Okay.
don't mind. So my first question is about the visuals in your music. So you have lots of very rich visuals in your songs, but they're also really emotional. So my question is, do you go for more of a feeling when you write, or are you really more geared towards creating a clear image for your listeners to relate to and see?
Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question, and I was working as an artist in schools in the Beaumont through the government, and I had to sort of investigate the creative process, and so I did some studying, and I tried to explain the creative process or works of art, as songs included, as having three parts: a feeling, an idea, and a form. And you need to have all three of those things. When I was working with school kids, so I had to simplify it as much as I could. But what you're talking about is the feeling, but also the idea. And of course, the form is the way it's presented in terms of musically. So what has to happen with any work of art, I think, is there has to be an inspiration somewhere. And it either comes from the feeling, or it comes from the idea, or it comes from the form. A lot of times you can just play guitar, and you start playing around the guitar, and you come up with a really beautiful melody. Well, there's a form. So it's like, well, you plug a feeling into it and an idea, and you have a song. So, and you don't necessarily, break it down and approach it in that manner, but there has to be an inspiration somewhere, either from a feeling or an idea or a form. So, a lot of times, the idea is what comes first for me. Like The Eye of the Hurricane, or Saving Me. So the idea of my dad, and what what he did saving me, and how there's a double entendre there. Because he was saving the photographs too. So it's not really cut and dried. It's, those three aspects kind of, influence one another in the creative process, and that's what's so neat is being surprised by your own creative process. You have to get into the zone, what I call the zone. That's the main thing. You have to have peace and quiet, to make it all come together and find that place, in your world where you can do that. But it's amazing, and I'm a Christian, so I give God credit for my work, because I know He has inspired me, and I know that He lets me know when it's finished and lets me know when it's not finished. So, but I have to be in a position where I can hear Him.
Thank you. I did have a second question. So it is something you touched on, which was the form. So my second question was something you touched on, which was the form of your creations of music. And you did talk about how sometimes you'll think of the melody before you think of the lyrics or the idea, which I thought was really interesting, because as a writer, I generally think of the words first.
Get the what?
The words. Like, I generally write the lyrics first, and then the music comes second. So what I thought was interesting was something you mentioned, that sometimes the music comes first. So do you think for you, your connection is more with the music, where that comes first and inspires your ideas? Or do you, like you said, they all three interplay, but more with your creative process, what do you think is more influential for you?
Yeah, if I'm noodling around or something, and I'm playing piano too, I write on piano, and I hit on something, it might spark, an idea or a feeling, but typically with me, I wait for, or I look for an idea. I saw a man the other day, and he was a panhandler, but he had a sign, and it said $1.65. And I drove by, and I saw that, and I said, "What? $1.65?" And I got what I call a chicken skin, And I said, I'm supposed to write that song, and I did. But that's, I was in the zone. I mean, I was paying attention. I had my antennas up, and that's really what you have to do. Woody Guthrie used to call it vaccinating yourself into society. Of course, he did that as far as all the people that he met, but that just came out of that. And sometimes, I spend a lot of windshield time, so it gives me time to think and to meditate on the world and human nature, and
I think it'd be kind of interesting to hear the $1.65 song. Would you guys like to hear that?
Okay. It's brand new, so I'll probably mess it up. But he was a street corner man, sign in his hand, smiling in his tattered old coat. As I drove on by from the corner of my eye, I saw on that sign what he wrote: $1.65. $1.65. God bless. Well, I circled the block. I had to stop, do what I could for that man. I never found out what that sign was about. Cars kept honking as he reached out his hand for $1.65, just $1.65. As I pulled away, his smile was saying that he never does ask for more than what he needs. He still believes he's a sparrow in the eyes of the Lord. Might be what it takes to get rid of his shakes. It's cold living under a bridge. Might be all he lacks to take a Greyhound back home to his wife and kid. $1.65. Now he's got that $1.65.
Wow.
Thank you.
Well, Tim, did you have a question? We need a microphone, though, so we can get it on our video. Andrew's got one for you.
And thank you for being here. And you've been a musician, songwriter, singer for a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
The rumor is that the life of a musician is not always plush. So my question is there ever been a time when you said, the heck with all this, I'm going to go sell shoes for J.C. Penney's or become an accountant or something like that?
Oh yeah, I've done a lot of day work. Sure. I had to raise 3 daughters, and I couldn't do it just playing guitar and singing. No way. So I did a lot of day work, and I was Mr. Mom for a long while. Now I'm Mr. Grandma. I'm Mr. Grandma, yeah. Because we're raising our granddaughters. But no, I mean, I never thought about ever quitting because I am obsessed or motivated or somehow I feel obligated to sing because, you know, over all the years, I've seen how it's healed people and how just by responses from people, you know, and you know what a difference it makes in the world to generate music and to serve others with your music. So I really feel obligated, I guess is the word, to do it.
You know, this past couple of weeks, and we were talking about this during sound check earlier, we've all been tuning into the new Ken Burns series on country music.
Yeah.
How many folks here have been watching that? You guys are studying way too much. Look at this. You know, it's interesting because what you know, they call what we call country music. I really was glad when we got past the phrase hillbilly music. I've never really liked that term, but they call it country music, sometimes folk music, sometimes roots music, sometimes hillbilly. But, you know, it's all about the storytelling. And, you know, one of the things that touches me so much is how this music is truly American. And it tells America's story.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a song that you think tells an American story in that way?
An American story? I have the project I did before this last project was called Small Town Sundown, and it was a whole
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
story,
Of course.
a movie and song about a small Texas prodigal that leaves the small town for the big city and comes back 10 years later when his grandfather dies. I'm trying to think if I've got something that's, I guess if you mean like patriotic.
No, not necessarily. It's more, when I think about, I'm trying to, well, so much of even the gospel songs that were influenced were a reflection of what that American experience was.
Well, there's one thing that I think is importantly American, and that's Mom and Pop. So I wrote a song for them. Just a short ways off the interstate down a two-lane county route, there's a place called Small Town, USA. Slow down, come on out. We got a cafe, ice house, feed and seed, and John Deere tractor shop. And they're all run by a hard-working couple we call Mom and Pop. Down at Mom and Pop's, you'll feel right at home. At Mom and Pop's, it's handmade and homegrown. At Mom and Pop's, you'll find a place that's family-owned and meet the two who built this country. Every time you stop at Mom and Pop. Mom and Pop. Pop's handshake is all you need for a lifetime guarantee. Mama's back in the kitchen fixing all you can eat. They ain't just making a living, they're making a life. Trying to make a last stand, this heartland man and wife. We call Mom and Pop, you'll get an honest deal. At Mom and Pop's, you get a home-cooked meal. At Mom and Pop's, you'll know how it feels to meet the two who built this country. Every time you stop at Mom and Pop's. Mom and Pop. They're the salt of the earth, and they're the American dream. And they're working sun up to sundown in overalls and jeans, filling pews on Sunday morning, singing them old-time hymns. They're down-home folks, and I'm proud to say, my next of kin. So come to Mom and Pop's, it's made with family pride. At Mom and Pop's, they'll fix it until it's right. At Mom and Pop's, you'll get something you can't buy from the two who built this country. Every time you stop at Mom and Pop. Mom and Pop. Just a short ways off the interstate down a two-lane county route, there's a place called Small Town, USA. Slow down and come on out. Y'all come back. That's American.
That's very American. Well, most songwriters definitely have heroes, people who impacted you, had early influence on you. Maybe they're still influencing. Not only the songs they wrote and performed themselves, but, even music that influenced them as well. So, and my bet is that those people who influenced you, a lot of these students haven't even heard about or maybe aren't familiar with. So would you share some stories about some of the people who influenced you as a songwriter and why?
Well, excuse me, when I first started out, like I say, it was Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Donovan, and Judy Collins, Paul Simon, and Joni Mitchell. Paul Simon was a big influence on me because he was a very what's the word I'm looking for?
That prolific, or?
Well, he wasn't all that prolific, but he was a very adept, and he was a great finger picker.
Oh, yeah.
And I always admired that, and I always enjoyed the challenge of learning his songs because he made so much come out of the guitar, so much, and that's what I wanted to do. So Paul Simon was a real big influence on me, and you're probably familiar with Paul Simon, aren't you?
You guys heard of Paul Simon?
Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah. Okay.
Simon and Garfunkel. We need to have a talk. You're missing out. I'm telling you that the history of American folk music is something that's very profound. It's something that you need to at least know of and listen to and appreciate. But and of course Townes Van Zandt, and I love Townes, and I never really wrote like Townes wrote because Townes had a real poetic way of juxtaposing words and images that was just all his own. But and Dave Van Ronk, he was a big influence on me. And actually got to meet him and open for him a couple of times and have him show me how to play a couple of songs I couldn't figure out. Back in the Greenwich Village, Dave Van Ronk was what they called the mayor of McDougal Street. And Bob Dylan, anybody know who Bob Dylan is? Okay, maybe half of them. We need to have a new course added to this university. I'll teach it. You need to know who Bob Dylan is. But anyway, as far as heroes go, or influences, I guess Paul Simon was a real big influence on me. Probably one of the biggest in Dave Van Ronk, because he had a blues style finger picking that was his own unique style, and Paul Simon had his own unique style.
Did you write a song, or have you written a song that was that has Dave's finger picking or blues style in it,
Oh, I don't know.
or Paul Simon's finger picking style? Do you feel connected to a song that either of them inspired?
No. I'm sure they did inspire me to write, but I don't know a specific song or not.
Yeah.
There's another gentleman, Bill Neely, who was. You know who Bill Neely was?
I've heard, yes.
He was Kenneth Threadgill's guitar player.
Yes.
But Kenneth Threadgill, anybody know who Kenneth Threadgill was? He did that. He sang a lot of Jimmy Rogers songs. And but anyway, Bill Neely, he taught me a lot about playing. He played swing, kind of.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
Uh-huh. And so he was kind of a mentor too. But heroes, I don't know. I'd say probably, you really used to like Paul Simon. When they were together with the Garfunkel, when he was together with Garfunkel, when he went off on his own, I kind of, didn't really follow him.
Oh, man, I love his
And then he got into
entire catalog.
Yeah, and
you
then
know?
he got into the big band, the
Yeah,
African stuff. And
Yep.
Ry Cooder was another influence on me too.
Yeah.
But you just get to a point where you just start doing your own thing, and you're.
So it sounds like to me that you found your own voice really pretty early in your life.
Well, maybe my 40s, 30s or 40s, maybe. Yeah,
Huh.
maybe.
Interesting. Did you said you started playing guitar when you were 14 and you started performing in the 60s, but so at what age did you start really writing? Did you know that you were a songwriter?
Probably when I was 16, and
In the misery on the walls and the street?
yeah, and leaving home and just the experiences. It's funny because what happens is when you're in my case anyway, when you start out in your 20s, you're experiencing so many things for the first time, and so the inspiration's just coming at you right and left, like like a scattergun. And it's just like, oh, I'm gonna write that. Oh yeah. And but then when you get into your 30s, you've already done a bunch of stuff, and so the inspiration it's not the first time, see?
Right.
So that doing something for the first time, that inspiration is just immediate, and it's right there, and it's powerful. But after you've get into your 30s, then you have to start maybe looking for a little inspiration, maybe reading or maybe listening to other songwriters and then I think it's when you start finding your own voice.
Okay.
In your 30s and 40s,
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I do.
And
I
the
do.
more
That's a
stuff
very
you do,
interesting perspective.
and the more experiences you have, the more you sort of have to ferret out, no, I don't want to go there. I've already written that, or I've already, that doesn't inspire me anymore, And like I say, you look for inspiration, or create inspirations, or create characters, which is what I like to do,
So, is there a particular song, or could you think of one that is what you would consider your first keeper, or your first with your own voice? I mean, an early one.
An early one. Well, the first album, I made my first album in 1978. And it had a ballad on it. It had a funny song. It had a ballad. It had a love song. It had a song I wrote for my best friend. I don't know. I could try this ballad. I don't know. It's kind of a long song, but. This was Tim Henderson's favorite George Ensle song.
Oh. So George mentioned Tim Henderson, who has passed, very dear friend of Bill and I's, and one of another fine Texas songwriter. I don't know how Texas produces, kind of back to your question, how Texas produces such amazing songwriters like Tim Henderson, like George Ensle, like Townes Van Zandt, like Guy Clark. Just amazing.
Tim was from West Virginia.
Good point. Okay, I
But
stand
he was
corrected.
Texan.
But we call him. We
Yeah,
claim
he was so
him.
Texan.
Yeah, he was.
Actually, I'm not sure if this is a song that I played that won the Kerrville Folk Festival songwriting contest or not. I'm not sure if it was this. But I was in Colorado, and I was on tour up there, and I picked up a hitchhiker, and he told me the story and there you go. I mean, it's like he gave me a good idea, and I just ran with it. And it's really funny because this Lindsay Hazley learned this song, and I'll give you a backstory on it after I'm done. If I ever get tuned. Beneath the steel gray winter sky, Adam Schofield's wagon rolled down a muddy street in Denver, his beard frozen in the snow. A simple man from a farming clan in the hills of Tennessee, driven by a cold desire for the gold that sets men stale smell of smoking whiskey filled the Crystal Cave saloon. Adam laid a boot upon the rail, his cold eyes searched the room. He saw the ancient red man who wore a crucifix of gold. He listened closely to the story the red man slowly told. Call it Devil's Mountain, the one that stands alone, that leaves the ones that come to claim him, crushed beneath the angry stone that holds a vein as wide as any man could ever hope to find. But an evil spirit walks the road that leads to the devil's mind. Not the kind of man for sharing, Adam chose to work alone. And with the laughter of a madman, he spoke of finding the miner's bones. They was fools to use those timbers. They was fools to think they'd hold. Adam showed the signs of sickness with a fever for the gold. Well, the word came with the thunder of a mighty avalanche, telling all the greedy seekers no man will stand a chance. When they reached the mine, they called Adam's name, but the empty wind replied, and the red man stood alone, holding his gold cross to the sky. They call it Devil's Mountain, the one that stands alone, that leaves the ones that come to claim it, crushed beneath the angry stone that holds a vein as wide as any man could ever hope to find. But an evil spirit walks the road that leads to the devil's mind. Now time will slowly change her mountain, but man will never rest. And in 33, the plans for the tunnel laid on Bob Jude's desk by a note that came from a medicine man to warn him of his fate. But Jude's fate lay in calculations, they never lie, they cannot wait. And the smile of Satan crossed Jude's face when that mountain pulled in sight. He said this time cold steel and concrete and blasting dynamite will surely tame that mountain. We're bound to pave a faster way. And the reservation braves watched from a hill just far enough away. The headlines were the kind that leave a man's blood running cold. 200 killed in cave-in after finding vein of gold. The picture made that mountain look like an angry red man's face, and the scars that marked the conquering were gone without a trace. They call it Devil's Mountain, the one that stands alone, that leaves the ones that come to claim him crushed beneath the angry stone that holds a vein as wide as any man could ever hope to find. But an evil spirit walks the road that leads to the devil's mind. Now a red road winds down Devil's Canyon. There's no marker and there's no sign. And I asked the hitchhiking Indian boy about the devil's mine. Showed me the golden crucifix his great-grandfather wore, made of Spanish gold, found on the path that led to the devil's door. Wide as any man could ever hope to find. But an evil spirit walks the road that leads to the devil's mind. It's an evil spirit that walks the road that leads to the devil's mind. Thank you.
Anybody have a question for George? That was an amazing song, by the way. Anybody have a question before we move on? Okay.
So that song I wrote when I was up in the Redstone Valley, and I was on tour, and it was the same tour that Lindsay Hazley had gone on the previous season. We had the same tour booker, and so he said that Adam Schofield, he said, you got that name right from Schofield Pass. I said, Schofield Pass, what do you mean? He said, well, that's the pass you went up when you took that hitchhiker up where you got the idea to write the song. And I said, no, I've had that Adam Schofield. I got the name Schofield off a mailbox in North Austin. And I thought, what a cool name, Schofield. I need to use that someday for a character's name. So he said, well, just look on the map, and I was at Schofield Pass. That's where I wrote the song.
That's amazing.
It gets better. So when I was working with the kids as an artist in school, I used to take they put out an almanac that's really cool. Remember when it first came out?
I
It was
loved
like
them.
1978, and it was this almanac that was this thick and had everything in it you could imagine. And I would thumb through it in the mornings to try to get inspiration. And one morning I was thumbing through it having coffee before I went to school, and I was looking up mining disasters, and there was Schofield, Utah. 200 killed in a cave in Schofield, Utah.
Wow.
It's okay.
Wow.
So anyway, that's what sometimes happens.
You know, it's interesting,
Makes it fun.
the creative process is, and I mean, it's unique. Sometimes things come along like that are just a gift and almost mysterious. And others, you know, you mentioned the song about your dad that you worked on for 5 years.
Yeah.
You know? So for the sake of our audience here, and especially our students who may be aspiring to be songwriters, take us through a song that you, maybe one of your recent creations, but kind of talk us through the process. You've hit on, you know, sometimes it's the music, sometimes it's the image, sometimes it's the feeling.
Form.
The form, yeah.
Yeah.
And so kind of take us through what inspired a song, give us the picture, vignette, what those steps look like, how long did it take, how
Well,
did that creation come about?
We could take the $1.65 song, which, again, it was something I actually witnessed, you know, and I saw this man, and I immediately, you know, I had to think, why? And why would someone ask for $1.65, you know? And so I just kind of was puzzled over it, but I definitely thought that he could have asked for a lot more. And, I mean, you know, typically, there's no price on the sign. It just says,
Right.
need
Money.
help, God bless.
Yeah, right.
And so it got me thinking, and I thought, well, I'm going to put a story to, you know, I'm going to work backwards or whatever, and put a story to it. And then I thought, and I just literally sat down with a guitar, and the first lines I came up with was, he was a street corner man with a sign in his hand, smiling in a tattered old coat. As I drove on by, from the corner of my eye, I saw on that sign what he wrote, $1.65, and I thought, wow, that's like the first verse.
Yeah.
There it is. That was easy. Now where do I go? You know, and so then I started thinking about now, and then the last verse, you know, about, you know, well, at first I was gonna say it was okay, you know, didn't really matter. See, I have a philosophy about panhandlers, and basically, at being a Christian, you know, I don't feel like it's my place to judge why they're there or why they're asking for handouts. All I know is they're my brother and sister, and they need something. And I'm obligated to give it to them. Not to question them, not to judge them, not to find out, take a survey. So I said, well, you know, I could just say it might be all it takes to get rid of his shakes, you know. And that could be interpreted as a cup of coffee or a shot of whiskey, you know. It's cold living under a bridge. And then it might be all he lacks to take a Greyhound back home to his wife and kids.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my gosh. I started crying.
Yeah, that moves you.
Yeah. It's because it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true, you know. So I'm not, you know, it's, people need to know that that's a fact of life, that it's not us to judge, it's us to give, you know. And in the middle, though, I had to figure out, so I had to stop and circle the block and see and do what I could for that man. I never found out what that sign was about. Cars kept honking as he reached out his hand, you know. And that whole aspect of,
Oh, yeah.
of people not getting it, you know. And then the bridge, you know, I went back and forth with different, I even had Mother Teresa in the bridge at one point, but because she said the wealthiest are the poor, you know, very often. because the poorest people, it's like the Beatitudes. Blessed
yeah.
are the poor in spirit. There's the kingdom of heaven. So that verse happened, and then the bridge is what kind of held me up, because I went a couple of different places with it, but I wound up kind of going back where I was in the beginning. But that's where that song came from. Devil's Mountain came from a story a guy told me. Song from my dad, came from, me paying tribute to him and honoring him. But at the same time, going into his second childhood, because he had a stroke. And so at the end, he was there, but he I don't know how much he couldn't really communicate, but I would still sing and play for him,
Yeah.
while he was lying there. But going the full circle with me taking care of him and him taking care of me, that idea, that seems pretty universal. So, but it's just like I say, it's being in an artistic frame of mind, trying to live your life as an artist is being open to what the world is showing you and sharing with you, But if you're so concerned with, and it's also living in the moment. It's also living in the moment, which my grandchildren are reminding me of that, because it really takes a childlike innocence in order for you to be inspired and touched, deep in your heart and soul. And it's so hard to find that innocence anymore, because there's so much that's taking the innocence away and burdening you with what I call more faster. I mean, that's what's happened to the whole millennial generation. Is guys, what they're feeding you is more faster is better, but less slower is better. That's when you can really be still and know. That's when you can meditate. That's when you can pray. That's when you can communicate with the Creator and with other people. And write songs that connect to other people, because we all have that common need in our human nature, And music touches a part of people that, they've proven it with Alzheimer's, but they've also proven it with, I knew a girl who graduated from a music therapy school. James Johnson also has a great story about it. James?
I don't.
He and Pam do the Thoreau.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
James Johnson. Anyway, but this girl that I met had just graduated with a music therapy degree, and she said she was working in a preemie ward, and they had a baby that was born premature and didn't have the suckling reflex, so they had to feed it with a feeding tube. And so they brought her in to teach the baby how to suckle. And so she hooked up a pacifier to some earbuds, and every time she sucked, it played a lullaby.
Wow.
And the music taught her the suckling reflex.
Wow. That's amazing.
So
Music heals. You said
it
that
does.
earlier.
It does.
Yeah.
And it connects.
George, it's time for us to wrap up.
Can I play one more song?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I was just wanting to tell you what an inspiring evening. I've enjoyed it. Have you guys enjoyed listening? So let's close with whatever is moving you in your spirit in this moment, or perhaps your favorite George Ensle song. But thank you so much for being here.
Well, it's a real honor. I know you have a wide selection of people you can invite that would be jump at the chance to do this, and I'm really honored that you and Bill chose me. I want to thank Bill Ward for doing such a great job on sound, too.
Yes, Bill.
This is an example of two people who share different philosophies or religions. I wrote this with a Buddhist, Mr. Richard Dobson. So a Buddhist and a Christian wrote this song. I asked for strength and I got trouble to get me straight and strong. I asked for wisdom and I got problems that taught me right from wrong. I asked for courage and I got dangers to get me through my fears. I asked for answers and I got silence that taught me how to hear. I asked for love and I got strangers who needed a helping hand. I asked for mercy and I got an old friend who needed another chance. I asked for beauty and I got to see the world through the eyes of a child. I asked for understanding and got to see an old one smile. I got the world in a raindrop and the promise in a seed. I got all I wanted when I got all I need. When I asked for years, I got moments instead. And when I asked for a feast, I got my daily bread. I asked for wealth and I got work and the hands to make my pay. I asked for truth, I got a lady stands beside me all the way. Got the world in a raindrop and the promise in a seed. I got all I wanted when I got all I need. I got all I wanted when I got all I need. Thank you.